here we are back in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you would like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And for all the programming that we have available for you 24/7, 365 on the X Zone Broadcast Network, just go to www.xzbn.net. And for the programming of the X Zone TV channel, which is channel number 21 on Simul TV, www.simultv.com. Well, it's starting to snow here in Hamilton, and, Christmas is in the air. What can I say? The Halloween candies and costumes weren't put away yet, and they had the Christmas trees up, the Christmas decorations, and I think they're kind of pushing it this year, but what do I know? I love Christmas. And, in fact, it put me in the mood to send out our first Christmas cards today. My wife thinks I'm a little dingy, but I just want to beat the rush. My guest for this hour, Exonation, is Pamela Kinney. She is an award-winning published author of horror, science fiction, fantasy, poetry, and a ghost wrangler of nonfiction ghost books published by Schiffer Publishing. Her horror short story, Bottled Spirits, published by BusyMag.com, was runner-up for the 2013 Small Press Award. Two of her nonfiction ghost books were nominated for Library of Virginia Awards. Her latest nonfiction ghost book to be published by Schiffer Publishing, Paranormal Petersburg, Virginia, and the Tri-Cities area, will be released, and it was released in August of, I think it's 2015. So joining me now is Pamela K. Kinney. And Pamela K. Kinney, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you for having me.
So what's it like being an author of nonfiction paranormal books?
Interesting. Well, one thing, unlike writing fiction, fiction is your imagination. Mm-hmm. And that's simple. You sit behind a desk and that's it.
Right.
But nonfiction, you have to go out, interview people, who've had experiences, or you also have to dig up legends, truth, history, when there's history connected to all that stuff, and take pictures live, of course, too, and even do your own investigation kind of to make it a well-rounded book. And one thing about nonfiction for me is not only I learned things about pieces of history I didn't know, at least locally,
right.
Stuff that's not in the books, but I also can learn some interesting legends and myths I never knew about. So,
where did your interest in the paranormal come from?
Ever since I was young. I mean, I read all this the stuff I write, but also when I was a kid, started reading Hans Holzer,
right,
and his books. So that's kind of started. It was interesting to me because it was like traveling around the world, but a much more interesting way as a kid. Since I was living in California at the time, and you can't travel as a kid anywhere unless your parents go somewhere. So this was a way of able to go around the world, but it was kind of an interesting way of doing it. Like he would go to ghost houses, haunted houses, and stuff like that. So
now you yourself
made it different. It was fussing.
Now you yourself, have you ever had an encounter in the paranormal, or with the paranormal, I should say? Yeah. Can you share
a
with
lot,
us?
a lot.
Share a couple with us.
Yeah. Well, let's start with when I was younger.
Okay.
I probably would say the first time I probably saw it when I was younger. Now that I was as an older, you think about the nightmares you have. Like I always had a weird issue. Most kids want lights in their room. I always wanted the dark so the monster wouldn't find me. And I thought, well, maybe that was some kind of a couple of the shows I may have saw on TV. You know how it is.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to think maybe I was seeing things much more than that. And the one I definitely can say I saw was in the daytime. It was in San Diego, in Old Town. My girlfriend and I, a bunch of us, were on field trip with our class. Mm-hmm. It was ninth grade, and so in spring of '69. And we had just got done eating at Taco Bell across the street, and we crossed the street and go look through the windows of the Whaley House, which is considered one of the most haunted houses in the United States. And at the time, I didn't know that, but we were looking through because we couldn't afford anything but what our parents gave us money for food. So we wanted to look inside the house, kind of, so we looked through the windows. Well, she was looking through the one that was the hallway. I was looking through the window that looked in on the courthouse that was in there, a courtroom. And I saw this lady in this old-fashioned dress, very solid, real short, had her back hair up in a bun, walking between the place, and went to the doorway. And I thought, oh gosh, I got to see her costume. It was really cool. So I ran around. My girlfriend had vacated that window, and I looked through there, but she wasn't anywhere. And I had really gotten there quick, so there's no way she could have beat me, and I wouldn't have seen her in the hallway. So we saw. My girlfriend said, "Oh well, look, the door's open." It was spring and it was warm, so they had the door open. So we went in there, and there were these ladies dressed in regular clothes. And I said, "Well, where's the tour guide in the costume?" And the lady goes, "We don't wear costumes." Well, there was somebody in the courtroom in there. I looked through the window, and she had a costume on, an old-fashioned dress. I just wanted to look at her dress closely. And they said, "Well, can you describe her?" So I did. And then one of the ladies go, "Honey, you saw the ghost of Mrs. Whaley."
Wow.
So I said, "Oh, okay." I didn't expect that, but she was as solid as any of us.
Really?
And that was the first time. And then my father passed away. He haunted the house for 3 days, which was interesting. I was in college at the time when he did. It always, because I'm Catholic, and you go in school and you learn a catechism class, 3 days before they go to heaven or hell or wherever they go, right?
Right.
And I thought, when he was buried, he quit haunting. I mean, the light was going on in the bedroom where they had taken him away from there off and on. And afterwards, my mother had somebody come there to look at it because it quit doing it, but she was worried because we don't know how to fix this stuff. There was nothing wrong with the light.
Huh.
It had just blinked off and on for the 3 days.
I guess that was his way of saying goodbye.
Yeah, and my mother said she saw him too. When I came home from college, because she had fallen asleep, and I said, "I saw your father," and it freaked me out a little bit there. And I go, "Mom, it's Dad. Why would he harm us?"
True.
It was like me blankly saying, "I don't mind." So yeah, he was there for 3 days. So that was an interesting concept that he was there for the 3 days. But after that, I've had experiences. I mean, in Paranormal Petersburg, that last book, there's 5 images in the book that you can see. So
Now, how did you take those pictures or those images?
plain old digital camera. It seems to work for me. It's done it in other places. And I've had friends say that, "Oh, gosh, that camera really works." I still have that camera. I have a newer one that's starting to do that, too. And it just snapped it, and it just, I don't know if it's the right time or whatever. I got 2 of them twice. One was the African-American man spirit in Wabi Sabi downstairs looking through the glass door in the back. And it's not an ordinary glass door, it's just because there's no way up. Looking through it when I was talking to the guy, taking a picture of the guy, the owner. And then the other twice I got was the woman looking out of the back window at the, now my brain went brain dead, the Violet Bank Museum in a house. It's a house in Colonial Heights. And I called her twice. And the funny thing is, the guy said, "Well, we are the most haunted place here in Colonial Heights, but we had the door open from the place into the other room. They had all the Christmas stuff. It's the Christmas stuff." So I went back a month later when they had everything gone. I took the same exact place out of the picture, and it's like I'm inside you. Then I brought it up close like I did with the other one.
Right.
And there's nothing in the window. There's a picture in the window. Robert E. Lee, you can see in it's a hallway going down to these steps that go down to this museum. But there's nothing in the hallway right there. So the other one has her twice looking out the window. So
why do you think that there are some people who can see ghosts where the majority of people can't?
This is my opinion. I think we all can. I really think we all have it in us. I read somewhere once that we lost a lot of our awareness, unlike animals, when we've risen off the ground, and of course we walk on 2 legs. And that might be a reason, and kind of an explanation. I mean, animals use their senses to know things. They know when there's, a tornado in the air. You know how they act up to certain events of weather and stuff like that. And they can see things too.
All right, Pamela, we've got to take our break. Please stand by. Exonation Pamela Kinney is our guest. And if you'd like to find out more about Pamela, her website is www.PamelaKKinney.com. And we'll both be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Pamela K. Kinney is our guest this hour. Exonation, www.PamelaKKinney.com is her website. Why do some ghosts, in your opinion, stay while others, like your dad, 3 days after, no more haunting? And yet there are reports of residual hauntings that go back to the Civil War and beyond. How do we explain this?
Well, number one, I really have a theory that they all can come back and forth. I mean, I've had run into some that admit to me on my ghost box when I'm either doing the books or actually paranormal investigating. I do a Paranormal World Secrets, like a reality show, that actually have told me, my people with me hearing this, that they have come back and forth. And I've heard this many a times. But I think a lot of them, of course, if some pass away and they maybe the theories are if they're done bad things in their lives, you know, people have their own little quirks that maybe they're afraid they're going to go to hell, so they stay here. Some people probably have a message to tell a relative that they maybe had left something that relative didn't know about and they wanted to let them know or something. But I actually think a lot of them can go back and forth, and I've heard this from some. That's what has been verified.
How?
That they can come back and forth. That's the weird thing.
How has this been verified?
By the ghosts talking. We've asked questions. I pose. I'm pretty hard, even on when I do the books, I'll ask them to verify things and stuff. One of which kind of made it interesting was we did Paranormal Secret. We did a Fort Magruder Hotel. It's in Williamsburg. It's really haunted. It's an ordinary hotel. You can go and stay in. It's there. But they have earthworks there. Well, they have a lot of Civil War soldiers and stuff.
Right.
And they have a couple of modern ghosts that died there, which has been seen. But they had one night we were filming. Was the interesting thing is we found out this lady ghost, and she admitted she was not connected to the hotel, but she was connected because the next day I was there as an author guest for because I write fiction, a science fiction convention, MarsCon. And she had been coming there when she was alive all the time. Well, she passed away, so she still comes back wherever the convention's at. Okay. And she said that to us, and we're like, me and my friend was like in shock. I had Carol Smith with me, who was like, she said, well, that kind of sounded good to her. She goes, well, I'm glad. She said, if we can do that, I'm hoping. She said, my mother does this because she passed away, and she never got to go to the Caribbean. So she said, maybe she gets to do this. So it's interesting to hear that this spirit is admitting it's coming back for the convention, and it's not connected to the hotel.
Oh, okay.
And
so
this is not the only time. I've had others tell me this too. So.
All right, I need you to help me understand something, and I'm sure the listeners would like to know. How do you hear this? How do you know it's really a ghost talking to you and not your own belief in the paranormal that is manifesting this thought?
I don't know about that. All I know is I try to make sure it's not radio waves because it's radio waves on your box. So I will ask direct questions, hoping to get direct answers. I had one where I'll ask. It was the Falling Creek Ironworks where they had all died but 2 children, and I took a picture of the thing originally, and then of course I asked questions later. And this is the daytime. You can only go to this place during the daytime. It's not exactly safe for them. The county of Chesterfield to open it all normally because of where it's at, and I got this. It sounded English, okay, kind of old English or something. And he said his first name, and he said his last name, which is on the top of that picture I took later after I got done putting it on the computer. Honestly, I went ahead, listened, wrote it down, because that was more important to get all that written down for the book. Then later, I went to look at the picture to see if this name, because I wrote down the first one, I think it was Peter Barn, he was on the top of the thing. I asked him, I had one where another spirit was actually with the Paranormal World Seekers. We did a moose lodge here, and we had a walkthrough, and we got this name Red. Well, we mentioned that, and the people that had gotten me in there, of course, they didn't know who Red was. And they were saying something when this man walked in that they knew was part of the moose lodge, and the guy said, "What are you talking about, Red?" And the woman said, it came up with the ghost thing and on the box, and we don't know who Red is. We knew the woman that they had on the box. They said that was the mother of one of the people that worked was the Moose Lodge person who had passed away, and she's supposedly haunting the place. But we don't know who Red is. He said, "Oh, Red, yeah, he and I joined this Moose Lodge when it first opened up in 1960. After that was just after it had been the building had been a general store, and the people had passed away, the owners, so they became a Moose Lodge. He and Red were one of the few first people that joined the Moose Lodge." And he said, and Red passed away a few years ago. And he mentioned of course, the guy's real name, but that's his nickname, Red. And it was like, we got this from them. They were like shocked too. And I said, "Oh my gosh, this is verification that there is something." And I didn't know who Red was. Jay didn't know who Red was. The guy wasn't there. So I don't know how to explain that.
I don't know, but you keep making reference to a box. You asked the box. What kind of box is this?
The ghost box. They call it a ghost box. It's a radio, been modified. I bought one off through another paranormal investigator through eBay, because originally one I had I was going to have my husband do. You can go on YouTube and get it done with Radio Shack. They say at that time, "Oh, they know everything." Well, they don't. The guy gave me the wrong kind, so I had to return it in. But I bought one off eBay, not that much more, and it was already modified, and it's been working for me. I've had people hear things. I've had people change their mind after hearing that stuff. So is it me? Might be. Is it the bot? I don't know.
So
what? I do try to ask. I do ask direct questions. I'd like them to prove that they're not the scanning waves, to prove me who they are.
Why do you think people want to believe in the paranormal? What is the significance of finding out if these really are ghosts? And once it's established that these are ghosts, what happens then?
Well, that's probably saying that a lot of us don't want to know that there's something beyond that. Once you die, that you're not just, that's it.
Yeah.
That there's got to be something more. I mean, why are we standing around? There's no explanation. How are we made and stuff, and how do we become here? And since time we're mortal, I mean, things like that. So it's a proof that maybe that once we die, there's something more.
But let us say that it is proven that ghosts are real. Okay? What happens then? What happens to the multi-billion-dollar industry that has now popped up thanks to the ghost industry, the paranormal industry? Does that cease?
I don't think so. I think there will always be new challenges. I don't know how much we'll be able to prove at this point. You need scientists, and we have some scientists, but not everybody is the real scientist. That's what we need, like more, to me, logically, it will be a long time, I think, before we can actually prove it. It may be a very long time.
But I don't know. Do you really think it'll be?
But for me, it's good. It's good to get some kind of verification of something.
But how can you call it verification if it hasn't been proven to be what you think it is?
Well, it's up to the individual. It's just that I have the feeling that something is giving me names that weren't something I knew about before. That's all I can say.
So it's a matter of belief.
I hope so. The belief, yeah.
Yeah. Why do
like it's like everything else. It's a matter of belief in anything, if you think about it.
Well, some things are provable that you believe in. Other things aren't.
Not everything was. But everything at some point was never provable either. So.
But the paranormal's been investigated now for hundreds of years, and still we're no further ahead.
No, I don't think we will be for a while.
Yeah.
You still need the real scientists. If we get real scientists who are willing to do this. We do have some. I mean, there are what you call real investigators. I have a friend, as I said, real investigator. Those are the ones that were parapsychologists that go to college, who learn, and it is connected with the mind psychology, because you have to take psychology to become a parapsychologist.
But there are no universities or colleges in the United States that offer a parapsychology course.
Yes, they do.
Where?
There are some up here in Charlottesville. The college up there does. The university there does. They have actual parapsychologists working there.
Really?
And that most of them, what they're studying at this point, are a lot to do with the psychic mind too.
Why should it be a scientist? Why not a doctor? Because the doctor, in my opinion, has more knowledge about the working of the human anatomy and its possibilities and impossibilities, and yet paranormal community wants to kind of stay away from the doctor and head over towards the scientist, and the scientist is saying, hey, I want no part of this.
But the doctor is a scientist. He does biology.
Uh-huh.
And then there's doctors, a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
They had to take biology too, doctoring.
A psychiatrist
you're still talking about scientific stuff. Seriously, think about it. You're still talking scientific. It's a lot of years that someone goes to school to become a doctor. And then for a psychologist of any kind, even the parapsychologist, they have to basically have some basics of what a doctor knows, the body. So you're still talking scientific stuff.
We've got to take our break for the
science.
news, so please stand by. XO Nation, we're going to return talking about the paranormal with our guest this hour, Pamela K. Kinney, and her website is PamelaKKinney.com. The X-Chronicles newspaper for the month of November, December is now available at xchroniclesnewspaper.com. And if you'd like to read my scathing op-ed today, visit our Facebook page. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Pamela Kinney is our guest this hour. PamelaKKinney.com is her website. And Pamela, in your opinion, where is the most haunted place when we talk about the Tri-Cities area?
Gosh, I would say any part of it. At least this is what a local historian that worked there at the Historical Society down there had told me once, that any part of the old part of downtown Petersburg, which is the original part, he's actually had a story for every building and most of the street area. So probably any part.
But based
really,
on,
I think he's honestly true about that.
But I'm asking you, as the author of the book, based on the research you did, where's the most haunted?
Gosh, I've had an experience at a lot of the spots. Definitely the Bistro restaurant, which is now closed, sadly. Last thing I heard, he had cancer, so I'm not sure if he passed away or not himself. But his place had a lot of spirits. There was the Dancing Ghost, which is from the 1800s. Other investigators caught, and we had experiences with. And plus the modern spirits, like a friend of his that passed away that smoked marijuana. She had a lot of things happening in there. Honestly, also, it's no longer owned by the guy that owns it. Somebody else bought it. But what used to be the place where actually Edgar Allan Poe had his honeymoon, there's a building there. It's and there's 3 floors, and on the top 2 floors, the second floor where Poe was, and then the third floor, it's quite a few spirits. We didn't have any experience with, I didn't have anything to do with Poe or Virginia coming on my ghost box or anything else I could get a hold of, EVPs and that. But I did get a hold of a Frenchman, and he was French. He said, because I asked him, I said, please tell me some kind of say something to me in French, and he did say "we" on the box. So that's all I could say. But there was a Frenchman that had owned the building before Poe's friend that owned it had committed suicide. And he haunts there, and then on the second floor were a lot of soldiers and a nurse haunts. That was because it was part of one of the hospitals during the siege.
Now,
So
since the entire city went through a lot, the original city, are there ghosts to be found walking the streets at any time of the day or the night as well?
Some people say they've seen things. I know that in the buildings there's quite a few. Also, Wabi Sabi has, like I said, the African American that I had, plus I gotten a child. There was a woman, and there's quite a few upstairs. It's actually apartments. In the old town, the buildings below usually are restaurants or places like that, businesses. The second and third floors are usually apartments, a lot of it. So they're separate. You can even find back. So some of the apartments, I've heard stories like in Wabi Sabi above it. There's been a lot of experiences up there. Because this used to be not only, it was a house of prostitution at one point, the whole building. So they had a lot of people talk about prostituting women a lot. It's been quite a few other things on the things. Same with the whole street. The whole street was the whole street of red light district. And an interesting thing is, I think they can cross down the street a year later. I had a book signing a friend had set up for me at her place, and we did my ghost box, see if anything would come. And it was obvious that we got the African American guy that was in my pictures and that I got at Wabi Sabi was there, and he said it was him. We'll take it out of whatever you can say, take it out of fact or not. But obviously he went down the street to actually communicate through that to me a year later. So that was interesting to me.
Let me ask you a question. Hold on here. Let me ask you a question. You do use your ghost box, and you hear the ghost in real time answering your questions, right?
Generally. And what I do is not only do I let them hear, if they're really loud, they'll be loud.
Yeah.
I also record it.
Okay.
I record it like I do EVPs because you want to make sure you're not missing anything.
All right, now here's my question. Here's my question.
Okay.
If on a ghost box you can hear the reply right away, okay, why can't you hear the response right away when you're doing an EVP using a digital or analog recorder?
Sometimes I do. You can hear things. We've heard voices. Another thing with the recorder that people use is to make sure you actually thought you heard something. Did you hear it?
Right.
You hear what you hear. I've been on investigations with nothing to do with the book, but just for fun with places where we'll hear something. And then if we prove it by getting on the EVP, and you can bring it, you can actually turn on your recorder right then and there and listen back. I mean, it's real logical. I also like to take it home and listen on the recorder on my computer with earphones to make sure I really hear everything right. But I've heard the same thing will be on the recording too. So sometimes you can. So I have no explanation. If there's a problem for them to communicate all the way through to you, if there's what it is, like I said, that's probably something I guess people would have to. You need scientists to think better for. I like science, but I'm not a scientist, and can figure maybe there's a reason why. But yeah, I've heard things too. Besides, sometimes I'll hear something without a recording on at the time too. So,
do you think that women are more susceptible to the paranormal than men are?
No.
No?
I don't think there's a difference.
And do you think, or do you just do your paranormal investigations during the nighttime, or do you also do paranormal investigations in the day?
I've done it during the day.
And
I don't think there's a difference. I've gotten my pictures in that book, a lot of it during the day.
Really? What does your husband
Those
think of?
pictures are good.
What does your husband think of your paranormal activity, investigation, authorship, and so on?
Doesn't bother him.
No.
And he's pretty supporting. So, you know, he's a very supporting man, and I'm, you know,
Does he go along
I
with
support
you?
him in his things.
Does he
Has
go?
he gone out with me?
Yeah.
Some things, yeah. Lately, he's been doing some investigations with us, but he's been with me in my books. If I go somewhere, he'll do it too. So depends. He doesn't investigate per se, you know, but he'll be there. Or if I took I did another book for Williamsburg, and there was a thing where I was taking a tour of the house. He held my recorder for the lady to, was talking at the time of the tour, and I went and take pictures and something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So he's there with me. He supports me.
I was just looking at my clock here. What does it take to be a paranormal investigator? What kind of person should, decide whether or not they want to do this? And how do they learn how to do it?
There's a lot of places online. You can watch others. You could probably take, for those that want to learn or see how it's done, they probably could take, there's a lot of places now, these places, museums will have tours, and they'll actually have equipment. So you could go along and probably handle with their equipment and learn some stuff from there to see if you really probably like it to begin with. I mean, or if it doesn't frighten you or anything. Number one, I really don't think you should be scared. If you're going to be scared, I mean, it defeats trying to be logical about the thing. If you're scared, it's not going to do you any good.
Well, if somebody's dead, how can they hurt you? If somebody is dead, how can they harm you?
Well, the hurting part, but I meant the logical stuff,
Yeah.
the thing that if you see a shadow, it freaks them out all of a sudden. I've done that. I've seen people do that. But I would suggest take a tour, like one of the museums that do that, and then see if you really like doing it to begin with anyway. Then you slowly learn things about the equipment you got. All you need anyway is a camera, maybe a recorder, paper and a pen, to watch down. If you want either your cell phone or a radio, if you have other people with you. You don't have to have anything expensive to do that. And I would, of course, follow the rules. I mean, should never go investigating in places that without permission. If you go into a park, there's a park, and you walk down the trail and you do it during the day with a friend, that's fine. But to go to a place that wouldn't let you in at, like cemeteries at night, sneaking in and stuff. Some people, you hear stories enough about that.
Well, there are enough stories.
That.
There are enough stories now in the news where people are getting arrested and charged with trespassing, breaking and entering. And law enforcement has had enough of the so-called paranormal investigator thinking that they're above the law, and a lot of these paranormal investigators are finding themselves in jail and in court, which I think is great.
That's what they should be, because they should not do anything you shouldn't go anywhere you're not supposed to.
That's right. You and I have to take our final break. Pamela, please stand by. Exonation Pamela Kinney is our special guest. And if you'd like to find out more about Pamela, her website is PamelaKKinney.com. That's www.PamelaKKinney.com. And we'll be back wrapping up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Welcome back. Pamela K. Kinney is our special guest, and she is the author of a new book that is being published by our good friends at Schiffer Publishing, Paranormal Petersburg, Virginia, and the Tri-Cities area. Her website, once again, is PamelaKKinney.com. Pamela, what is the hardest part of being a paranormal author?
Hardest part?
Yep.
I would think probably, having to get all that stuff put together, but it's probably the easiest book to write. I tell you, fiction's harder because you got to go through a lot to get all that done. More than that, basically, it's the hardest part is going to interview people, getting pictures taken, all that stuff, and then putting it together, because it's a little bit done differently than writing fiction too, and putting things in captions and stuff. But it does go faster too, which is kind of interesting. But it's the writing part probably, because it's a little bit harder. Like I said, once you get all that stuff, you have to do different things with captions and just totally written differently than fiction. Fiction's simple. It's all, straight laid down in alt word, and you got it written, and that's it.
Now, you're with an established publishing house, Schiffer. But there are so many paranormal authors out there who are just using self-publishing as a method to get their book out there, and then they, like Schiffer, put the books up on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and so on. How has the self-publish industry affected an author like yourself who is with a mainstream publishing house?
Well, there's a lot more people out there, and I don't stop authors, because actually I've self-published with a novel. So, I mean, I have mostly published books from publishers, but I actually have a self-published novel too. And I think all authors should have a chance to make where they can money, which is only on the author side. It's just a lot more than it's been. And I think that's competition is stiffer, that's all, for anything. I remember, because I'm old enough, when books were only so many books you got out a year, and now you see so many, like I would say a stampede of them is a word. But it's just competition. This makes you work harder when you have to promote any of your books anyway. So,
according to one of the latest statistics that my producer just sent me on our computer screen here in the studio, 30,000 new books hit the market globally each and every month. 30,000 books. Yep.
A lot of people want to write. Some are not that good. I've read some and going, they needed to edit or publish, or they should have hired an editor.
Sure.
And some are very good. And, it's just like anything else. You have to promote. The world has changed. Everybody has to promote now. I mean, paranormal's a popular subject anyway, not just in ghost books, but what's that paranormal fiction?
Yeah.
So.
It's a cash cow industry right now.
Right.
So how does, like with all the different genres within the paranormal itself, you've got Bigfoot, you've got Loch Ness Monster, you've got psychic phenomenon, you've got parapsychology, you've got ghost huntings, alien abduction, and so on. When somebody is saying that the book is nonfiction, how is the reader to gauge whether or not the content is really nonfiction?
Well, number one, they're probably, for mine anyway, there's interviews in it. There won't be interviews in fiction books, so.
But if there's an unscrupulous author out there who makes up interviews and publishes them as nonfiction, who would ever know the difference?
Oh, hopefully you tell people to train them right. At least I try to tell people when they ask me. I've had people ask me, so what's the difference? I said, well, the only difference between a ghost book and the fiction. The fiction's all made up. There's no way. I mean, there is made up stuff in it. Talk about legends. Who know who started the legends?
Right.
Because that's in the history books. But there's history in it, I said, and it's not more history than if I wrote fiction. If I put as much history as I put in my ghost books in my fiction, that would be called, what's the word? When you're over teaching people too much, you only can sprinkle things through your book. If something's got to be in there, not that much, but you have to give the history if it's part of the chapter. Say the house is haunted, but it's also historical. And I try to put the history in it for the people that want to know the history part.
Would,
So I try to get everything from the people.
would you say that
So that
would you say that a greater part of a paranormal investigator is actually a historian?
I would say so. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. To me, it's history. Only reason when I do paranormal investigating, sometimes I like to ask questions
Mm-hmm.
that nobody else thinks about. Sometimes when I did, I was at the battlefield in Petersburg, and I asked the ghost on my ghost box. I thought, well, Todd, did you like hardtack? I mean, I try to think, well, let's make this realistically. Let's let people know how this will make this real history, even for me. I mean, you can learn in the books, in the history books, the dried stuff, but what were the people like?
Mm-hmm.
How did they like something? Did they like something to eat? Did they like this? Who was their girlfriend's names? Did they have girlfriends? What was their names? I try to ask things like that, see if I can get anything to know the personal part of history. And in a way I can add that. That's my investigation part. I add in the history that we know from the historians of each place that give me that. But the rest of it is from me asking the ghost, did you like hardtack? Did you have a girlfriend? You passed away. Where is she from? You're a Northern soldier? What was her name? And all that stuff. So I try to get things like that I thought would interest me anyway. So if I write the books, I also writing it for myself, how I would love to read, but hoping that maybe other people would like to know that too. So
What was the
yeah,
coolest?
it's kind of you're kind of a historian in a way.
Sure.
You should be anyway.
What was the coolest paranormal activity that you encountered during your book?
During my book,
Yeah.
oh gosh, let me think. Well, the coolest actually is Parker's Battery. Every time I go back there, it's here in Chester. I live here,
Mm-hmm.
and I did it for the book twice. Once we had a weird happening one year. It was before I thought to write the book, so it's in there. And my recorder, my ghost box on my recorder didn't record. Nothing happened on my end, which is really weird. There was nothing wrong. And the following year, I went back. That's when I got a picture too, with a figure, plus other stuff. Another thing with the same place, going back this year, a friend and I decided we needed a break. We both writers. She writes fiction too, and she had just gotten done with hers. I got done with mine. I said, we need a break. I said, let's just go do this and go to Parker's Battery and just walk down the trail and see what we get. And I had this little digital camcorder. And at the time, I noticed after we walked through it, it had turned off. And I said, well, I didn't touch it. So we went back through and did it again, turned it on. And I went home and uploaded it. And the first part, I found out what happened when I had went through, and I'm asking questions like, you can talk to me on this recorder. It's a recorder, but it's a camera. You can show yourself to me if you want. And the next moment, I got this real loud, and it's really loud, and it's no male voice. And there was no men there at the time, just me and her at the time. So it was too hot a day for anybody else but two idiots to be out there. But we wanted to have this break, so we did it. But yeah, it was caught on my. So that place is like the coolest thing. That every year I come back, it seems like, even when it's not a time of when they had the battle,
Mm-hmm.
that there's something in that little spot. It's just a little battery. It's all it is.
Do you think the ghosts actually form a relationship with you?
Some know. Back at Fort Magruder, when I stayed there for the MarsCon, every year they had me do a ghost tour, they call it, or investigation with some people from the convention. That was part of one of my things I got to do as a guest. And every year on my box, I would hear the same male voice. And when I called him, he would say, "Hi, Pam. Hi, Pamela." Every year. So it was right off the bat. And I said, oh, it's my northern soldier. That's what I call it, my northern soldier. He was a northern soldier. That's why I talked about asking them for their names of girlfriends and stuff to see if you can get any reality here. And he had said his girlfriend's name at the time was Cynthia back then and all that. He said every year he would say it. Off the bat, I come out of my box. Hi, Pam.
Is ghost activity more active in the summer, in the winter, in the spring, or in the fall?
It depends. I think it's active anytime, but some places, Edgewood Plantation, I did it for another book. She said that when I went there to interview her, I didn't get anything that year, that September. She always said in her area, her house, it happens better in the winter for them. And I had been back there just for fun with the group, and they had a thing set up on New Year's Eve, and I got ghost dogs and a picture and everything else. So things did happen more. So she was right, winter for them. So it depends on the place, I mean.
Sure.
But a lot to me, I don't think there's any difference to me,
All right, Pam, we have to say so long for tonight. I want to thank you for joining us. And Exo Nation, once again, if you'd like to find out more about our guest this hour, Pamela K. Kinney. Her website is www.pamelakkinney.com. And if you're walking the streets of, where was she, Petersburg, Virginia, and you see this little lady walking around talking to a ghost box, say, "Hi, Pamela." I don't know anymore, really, I really don't know. Am I a skeptic? Yeah. Am I a believer? I want to be. Do I think I'll ever get the proof or evidence to allow me to take a serious look at the feasibility or the possibility that ghosts are real? I don't think so. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.